Guys, just before we get started, if you're loving the podcast, can you please go leave us a 5-star review on Spotify, and please make sure that you subscribe on whatever channel that you listen to us on. It helps us out dramatically.
It is okay to lead with feeling, and I think that really distinguishes different types of leaders, the ones that can look at their staff members and say, you need a break, you need help, I know what you're good at, I know you love doing this, let's give you more of that, and allowing your team to flourish, and then looking at your customers and saying, okay, you're dissatisfied, how can we do this better, how can we do that better? You know, I think that motion is not something that a textbook will teach you. It is something that you intuitively feel and have to lean into. And I think as a leader, we're often told to, you know, put those feelings away, leave them at home, leave the emotion at home. And now, after, you know, going through an exit and starting a new business, one new learning that I've taken with me is no, fuck that. I will definitely be leading with my feelings, because my intuition is the thing that teaches me where to go. It's the compass, really.
Yeah, we'll go then, baby girl, we'll go then. Yeah, about to see it shine, 'cause we'll go then.
Jenna and Jade, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us again.
Well, we tried last time. That was the thing. We tried, and I think, Jade, you were sick. Was it?
Remember.
It was the day after my birthday. You were sick.
Oh, yes. The virus it was literally COVID 2.0. Bedridden.
Was it the flu though?
That was that flu.
Yeah, and then I got it after
the
you.
mega flu.
Yeah. So I got it. I think I got it 2 weeks later as well. So
Good old influenza.
We should have done it then, and you could have just caught it straight from me.
100%.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited to have you both on together.
A lot has happened.
Yeah, because I've had you both on individually, and both of those episodes were great, amazing. Everyone loved it. But I think having you bounce off each other, because you're now obviously in business together, which is really exciting. So we might start there. Big Uppetite. What's the 30-second elevator pitch for Big Uppetite, just before we obviously dive into some topics?
So at Big Uppetite, we're the vehicle for growth for businesses. So we typically work with small to medium-sized businesses and do everything from creating their idea and their offer, their visuals, their personality, and we execute it through development and marketing.
Beautiful.
Bringing your vision to life.
We do the
If you're
heavy
hungry for
lifting.
growth, we're aggressive, but we're enthusiastic. So,
So
we know
good.
what we're doing.
yeah, exactly.
So I'd love to, obviously, I think the one thing about this podcast is we have obviously people in different stages of business, but you both have been in business before, and obviously now you're launching again. I'd love to find out what are the things that you've obviously brought from, say, previous experiences, and then is there anything new that you're learning potentially about the market, you know? So is it different to what it was years and years ago? What are the similarities? Obviously we're in a different stage, from an economic standpoint as well. So I'd love to just get an insight into what you've learned, in the process of launching a new business.
I think we've both had a very high competitive advantage coming from our previous backgrounds. Like, we feel very confident with what we're doing, and a lot of it is repetition from our past, both in a client perspective, because we were both consulting before we started this, and also from a personal perspective as well. So I think there's been a lot of competence and a lot of, recognition of similarities to be able to feel really confident in the position. But I think for us both, like, to be totally frank with you, there's been just an appropriation of the fact that we're a startup now. So coming off the high horse a little bit, I was previously a director of a company with 30 staff. It was a multi-million-dollar business, and now I'm starting again,
Eating dirt again.
No, but literally.
Doing the grunt work a little bit.
Yeah, and you know what? I can tell you now, I'm learning more day to day than I did in my final stages of my previous business through just sheer, getting your hands dirty, which I think is a takeaway for a lot of business owners. If you want to find out what's happening under the bonnet of your business, get into it. Just get your hands dirty.
That's actually very true, especially when you are hiring to grow. And we spoke about this in our previous episode. To lead a team, especially in a startup, you want to be able to support them. You need to understand what they're doing and how they're doing it. And don't get me wrong, I haven't sat in the back end of our CRM for a minute or very long at all, but I still understand what it can do and how it works so that you can effectively lead a team. But I think in terms of a market and what I've seen in the market, one thing that will remain unchanged, I believe, is human behavior principles, looking at marketing and really appealing directly to your consumer. And I think that's something we've always done, especially with our clients in the fitness industry. Jade and I both have a passion and drive for health and fitness. We both have backgrounds in that space, and we've always been really true to their customers' results, whereas some businesses are really focused on their customers' sales and their customers look and feel and getting the job done. It's like, we actually want your clients to get a really good result and have a good experience as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, you know, like all businesses, there's a lot of answers in both your problems and your solutions, and we're very much experiencing that. Like, we've had a cracker 6 months, lots of wins, but also learnings as well. So that's where our future kind of sits, in looking at both of those like camps.
Yeah. I think as well that I was a sole trader. My previous company, I worked really hard and fast, and I worked really hard and fast, and I was working alone with a couple of contractors and one full-time employee. And Jade, on the flip side, had a whole team. And I know Jade shared that since partnering, her dynamic has sort of shifted in how we've not split the business in terms of split our workload, but just our strengths are sort of where we originally partnered. We thought we were very similar and strong in similar areas, and it took us a little while, I think, my going away as well, to learn what we were actually strong and different in as well. Yeah, so previously in my past relationship, we'll call it, Amal was very focused on the operations, the financials, the numbers side of the business, and the development and anything that was essentially tech related, and that seems to be my place in our current business, which I think, you know, there's probably merit in sometimes just as a business owner, or even just as an individual in a growing company, to actually be quite true to your strengths and, you know, drop the ego and look around you to say, well, who can do this better for the benefit of the growth of this company? And I think we very much did that at the start as well. We kind of, you know, wriggled into our places and out of comfort zones, I think.
It's super interesting that you say that, and I think that's a really good lesson for people, is like, it may not be your core strength, but if we look at the strengths and weaknesses relative to everybody that we have in the team, you know, like I'm going through something similar at the moment where a lot of mine is about relationship management, because, and it is numbers, and it is these kind of things, and it is managing accounts, and it's doing a lot of that stuff. Now, do I want to be doing that? Probably not long term, but you know, do I have to do it now because I'm the person with the skills to carry out that part of the business? Yeah, I have to do it. So I think that's like a really cool, I guess, lesson for people to learn in a startup, is that especially if you're doing it with a small amount of people, like, you know, if you had said that 5 to 6 years ago, I probably wouldn't have done it. You know what I mean? Like, no, we're just going to go this direction and going to go that way. I'd love to hear about, obviously startups it's chaos. You know, it can be utter chaos. You know what I mean?
No, we're breaking at the seams here.
So like, obviously you guys are going through it in real time. So I think you've probably been able to talk it in retrospect before, but in real time, like, what advice would you have for founders, you know, around that chaos and how to actually deal with it? Because I think it's not necessarily, you know, you can try to fix it with systems and processes and so on, but, you know, when you're growing at such a rapid rate, or you're trying to grow at a rapid rate, they go out the window a lot of the time, and it's like, we've got due dates and we've got to get these done at due dates. Yeah. So how do people manage that, you know, if they haven't experienced it before?
Look, I think we should acknowledge that. I think having a pressure to make money and revenue probably adds to the stress. We've been pretty lucky that hasn't been an issue for us, just given the backgrounds and the nature of what we do.
We've merged two businesses.
Yeah, essentially we had, you know, knocks on the door, which is a great problem to have. So we didn't have that issue. So I can sort of respect that there's a lot of core issues that a startup would typically experience. But I think that not being one for us meant that there was a lot of things that we had to say yes to and learn later. You know, I think keeping a customer happy should be at the forefront of your objectives at any given time when you're a business owner. And, you know, yes, we can. It was sort of a line that we typically used at the start and still use to this day, and work it out later was, you know, our primary goal after doing that. So I think, you know, obviously logistically sometimes there's issues in doing that, but I think overall, like, you need happy customers when you're a founder of a startup, and I think that should be the number one objective. So we just sort of say yes, knowing it's within scope of work, and whatever we learn in that case will be applied tenfold and obviously better going after that, and probably form part of a process. And then we bend over backwards and make sure it's done to perfection and then deliver sort of thing.
And that really forces you to find the right people and the right team as well. And I think that's something that whole say yes thing, it's something we're capable of managing through, especially with Jade's background leading a team. But in terms of when we'd actually started, it's like, yeah, we know how to get this done, but we don't know how to do it. And I think it was probably leaning into that process as well. But I think the other advice that I have for people in the chaos is look after yourself. It's really hard. And I was speaking to you about this a little bit before in terms of balance and being the new perfection. But when you're working with a team, when you're working with people, this is a relationship. And in so many regards, the people that you hire, the contractors that you work with, you have to be a good human. And your stress and your outbursts and the way that you communicate and the way that you manage that stress and sleep at night and that way you feel about your health, like I said as well in our last episode, like if you're your productive asset, if you are your workhorse, treat yourself like the $1 million racehorse that you are, and make sure that you're looking after yourself so that you can perform under pressure, because that was something that I also noticed, being answerable to so many people, having so many clients, and all of a sudden where I was most frazzled was sort of like keeping across all these moving parts. And honestly, it comes down to like mental clarity and energy and being a good human as well. Yeah. People have to want to work with you.
And that extends to the team as well. I don't think I asked enough times in my previous role to individual staff members, like, are you okay? Are you coping? Are you liking what you're doing? What's the best part about what you're doing? What are customers saying to you on a daily basis? And I think I've had way more of those touch points, like almost even daily now. And I respect that it's a much smaller team and that makes things a lot easier to do. But going back to what I originally said about a lot of your solutions being in your problems and solutions, that is one, that is a lot of problems manifested and solutions manifested that sit within your team. Like they're the chest box for all of that.
There's two parts to that I want to kind of elaborate on. So I'm going to go on the first one first around, balance. And because it's such a funny word, when we obviously say words, it can be associated with something.
It's like healthy. Like, what the fuck?
Results.
Yeah, I feel
that.
Because and I think one of the problems, and I'd love to get your take on this, is often you can get trapped into thinking that, and I feel like this is where that word balance comes in. It's like there's only one way, so like in terms of, let's say, a morning routine. Like there's only one morning routine that you can follow, and we get that from other people and say social media or so on. Whereas having the confidence to actually understand what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and then leaning into what does work for you and having the confidence to go with it. You know what I mean? The balance side of it is what I'm trying to get at is around morning routines. Maybe it's your working hours, or we just talked about it before.
Appropriate it.
For me, I was trying to train in the morning because I'm I had people in my ear saying, "Oh no, but you're going to feel so much better in the day and you're going to get more done." And I tried it, and it may have been the case, but the thing that really works for me is training at night. And working in the morning and getting up early in the morning and working. And it was for a long time I was looking at what other people were doing. I'm like, should I be doing that? And then it's the confidence to
and you feel
shift.
Bad almost. You see, like Jade was sharing earlier, if you are training at night and you're watching your watch and you haven't hit your steps, it can make you feel some type of way in the middle of the day. And I think I had gone through a period of time where there was this rule in my head. I'm very rigid with my structure. It's gotten me through a lot in life. And
context, Jenna's a bodybuilder by
So I'm I love structure, wake up, journal, train, shower, eat breakfast, start work. That never changes. And I went through a period of time where I was like, okay, I have to be open to change. I have to be a little bit more fluid because things aren't working anymore around me, and I really need to look at my priorities. But then I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy if I was waking up and not doing something for myself before I felt like I was serving other people. And although I noticed the silence, which is golden, of 6 a.m. on a laptop, I also noticed that in the afternoon, I didn't really want to train and I didn't really want to work because I'd started so early. So it is about finding what works for you.
And on that note as well, before Jenna and I partnered for Big Uppetite, I was in a period of leave. I wasn't working. I was only casually consulting, and I was a lady of leisure, and I was flogging the gym. One of my girlfriends and I were training daily, and we were training for, an hour and a half high intensity, and then we'd go for a coastal walk after. This is is like 3 hours of serious movement. And as a result, you know, when I started Big Uppetite, like I'd love to be able to do that, and I could do it at 4 a.m. You know, that can still happen, but it would take a toll on the rest of the day.
That was something that I did struggle with. So I do believe what you focus on grows, and I am very passionate about training, and I love bodybuilding. Would I do another show? Not necessarily the conversation, but like I loved moving. I loved training 5 mornings a week. I loved doing a walk or a cardio session. And then I realized like how many hours in a day, especially if I'm driving to the gym, which is 20 or 40 minutes can be, and then the session and then a walk. And like I had to learn to relax when I wasn't like hitting my steps or doing all these things. And as much as I love doing that, what I'm focusing on is business and the growth of our business. And it meant clawing back time. And that's like a day's work if you can cut out, you know, at the time, if you were to compare, say, that level of activity on a prep, it is a day's work. And you have to be okay with it. And that's when you really sort of have to check in with yourself, which is what I was saying before, and say, what's really important to me right now? And training 3 to 4 times a week is healthy, and just going for walks is healthy. Like that's fine as well. You know, you don't have to put unnecessary pressure on yourself. I think there's already enough in a startup phase.
I think when it comes to balance, there is a bit of an art of compensation. And I think that can also kind of like sift into the business as well. Like Jenna and I had a conversation this morning where we're under huge pressure at the moment, very high stress. And I just said to her this morning, I said, we know what we can do. We need to now focus on what we need to do. And we need to start sorting things out into piles of can wait, absolute necessity, can wait, absolute necessity. So I think that balance can also, you know, personify in your business and in your people and in your team and things like that as well, because something's got to give, you know.
Yeah. And I think balance doesn't mean you don't work hard or you don't put in, it's like, you know, balance is finding what works for you, it's that constant journey of finding your routine and your structure, and so that you can execute to the absolute max.
And checking in with yourself, like I can't remember who it was, if it's Ryan Holiday or James Clear, but is this necessary? It's such a powerful question to ask yourself, because the pressure that we put on ourselves, there's like, you know, there's your to-do list, then there's your must-do list, and then there's like probably actually what you really need to do. And some of those things on your to-do list, if you didn't do them, it really doesn't matter. And it also can affect, you know, your personal life and how you're living and what you're working on. Just asking yourself, is this a necessity right now for what we're just currently trying to achieve? Because there's only one of you. You know, there's only ever going to be one of you. And even in partnering with someone who's pretty similar, that's something that you really do have to ask yourself.
Yeah. Don't just tick boxes, you know, like think about what you're actually doing. And then the second part to that was you kind of talked about saying yes and learning later, or building the processes later, or, you know, and the system. At what point do you have to shift that mindset, do you think? Because you've both been in businesses before, right?
Well, I think you can never stop learning, but I think things get a heck of a lot easier when you've done it a few times around. So that means, you know, even going back to appropriation in my old business, you know, we were online coaching, and that 100th client was dealt with completely differently to that first client, you know, and the same goes for our business as well. There is a starting point for every business, for every process, for every product or service. There is that first one. I remember when I was in Silicon, and the founder of Twitter was like, you know, if you don't laugh at your very first version of your app, you're doing something wrong, because it won't be your last. And, you know, I even look at the first version of the first tech product I ever built, and it was laughable now in comparison to how it stands today. So I think process evolves just as much as product and service evolves as well. So in time, your process will be less guesswork, and it will be more accuracy in what you're delivering.
I think you start saying no when you really have truly defined what you want to be known for. And it's important to also know, it's more so with the clients that you're taking on, not what the solution is that you're providing. I think it's really important to know who you are and who you are talking to, but as important to know who you are not and who you are ignoring. And I think often in trying to grow a startup, you just say yes, yes, yes to all these clients because you obviously are revenue focused, but really, like, what are your strengths? Do you like this client group or this industry? Do you enjoy this kind of work? And why are you doing it if you don't? If you said like to say no to something is saying yes to something else. So if you said no to that client, you can put your effort and energy into sourcing another one in the group that you like to work with.
We see it a lot with online coaches in the health and fitness space that we predominantly work in, whereby, you know, it's a universal service, right? Like everyone wants to achieve some sort of fat loss, muscle gain or weight management goal. And you can work with anyone. However, in time when I guess choice becomes that luxury that you can, you know, just go with, I think people start saying yes to maybe a minority and then call that their niche and specialty, and that's what they go after predominantly.
And then they end up saying they want to work with a different client group. And I'm like, because you've taken on so many of X, like you get what you give, right? So the results that you're pumping out are from the clients that you're taking on because you said yes so many times that now the business that you actually want to work that makes you happy, you don't have because you never learned to say no at the start.
Yeah, I feel like there's like a certain point, you know, like where saying yes to everything becomes a negative, or it you know, affects the operations in the company negatively. And so like David Sachs, he's a co-founder at PayPal, but he talks about having like an operational cadence, and it's kind of like a philosophy, you know, so it's not necessarily the rules, but it's like how we operate. You know, we have like a philosophy, and we kind of fundamentally, this is how we do quarter to quarter. And I feel like once you get to a point where you have to think about that, you actually have to think about, well, how does saying yes to this affect our operations? So it's just one of those interesting things that I think like eventually there's a point where you have to start looking at the yes or no question, and how does that affect, you know, the operational cadence.
I think saying yes to everything and saying yes to everyone are kind of two camps of situations that you've got, you know. Market and, you know, delivering a good service is probably like...
Well, you could also argue that it's like you're still saying yes by saying no to the clients you don't want to work with. You know what I mean? You're saying yes to your vision, you're saying yes to being true to your values, and you're just saying no to those clients, you know?
Definitely. All right, so if... This is a question I was excited to ask because I love both of your brains, but I want to see how they mesh together and kind of build a product. But if I was a new client and I was coming to you and I said, hey, I want to grow my business, what's the process that you go through? And what are some of the big questions that we have to answer in order to obviously get that growth? So, you know, and we're talking more like fundamentally, you know, rather than the process you go through, what are the principles that you go, okay, these are the things that we need to make sure we got in order to make sure that we actually can grow?
I think the first three fundamentals are: what are you doing, who are you doing it for, and why are you doing it? I think they're that's the first place to start. From there, you'll usually extract founder's vision, which is hugely important. I don't really see many people today that say, I just want to make money. And I think that's always a not workable kind of vision to have. Like, I think you usually have passion in founders, which I think is...
You get found out pretty quick if that's your agenda.
Well, you know, I reckon you lose your drive at some point. And
community connection.
Yeah.
That retention, the strategy for retention, community and community building.
Definitely.
You just lose it when there's no heart.
Definitely. It's surprising on the what are you doing sort of piece, how many people don't actually know what they're offering, and they haven't actually looked at their service and said, you know, well, what's this without that, and what's this without that? If you're doing a weekly check-in, you know, how accountable are you for your client's nutrition or their training or their this or their that? Are you doing a midweek check-in, reviewing a food diary, or, you know, little bits and pieces? So I think we really kind of unpack the actual service and its viability as well, and also its scalability, which then comes into the how are you doing it sort of thing, and looking at that client process. You know, often in time some clients will tell us, like, our clients will jump on this platform to chat to us, they'll get their thing from this, and then they'll go to this to do that, and we're like, whoa, let's streamline that shit, you know?
Yeah, I think that's something that is really underestimated or undervalued when working with business coaches or looking for the right partner for you to grow your business, and that is maximizing income producing activity. There's so much effort and attention that goes into brand style guides and colors and social assets and content that you're creating, but really, like, what we need to look at is how much does it cost you to service a client, how much time does it cost you to service a client, and the profitability, like what you're banking at the end of the day as a percentage of your dollar, and the ways that we can service more clients for every hour that's coming through your business. business. And then, of course, it's just, increasing the capacity of the business is really what we do. We get under the bonnet really quick with that so that we can establish the right tech solution, the right dev solution for the client, and then we move into marketing.
And then sometimes you'll see so many holes uncovered in this process as well. Like founders are so focused on new business. It's like, well, why is your current business leaving?
Yeah, like
why do you have a churn rate that is like through the goddamn roof?
That's the easiest problem to fix.
And you know, in that as well, like you've got 250 clients with a referral program. That 250 can double your business overnight. Like, let's go there. Little bits and pieces there, but essentially in the unpacking process, that's really where it starts. Is like, what are you doing? How are you doing it? And like,
I would say for a small business, that is the most underrated way to grow. Like if you had 50 clients and they didn't leave and they all bought a friend and that happened every month or every quarter, you would not be able to facilitate that growth fast enough. And I think there's so much obsession with leads and awareness and those sorts of metrics where really your customer satisfaction is at the forefront of why it's validation. It's validation that your service works. So you should continue to always refine that as well.
I remember we got listed in my previous business for the Deloitte Fast 50 and we had a 987% growth in our revenue. And there was so many questions like, how did you do it? How did you do it? And we felt like little fraudsters. We're like, we just have a loyalty program and a referral program. You know, like it was generally just driven on word of mouth and very, very organic growth. Like there was no fancy paid strategies that were targeting particular segments. Yes, of course that came, but overall the business was hugely successful because we valued our people and then we multiplied our people with our people that were happy.
That comes back to what we said before when you were asking, like, what have we learned in coming together in a new market? And we said human behavior principles. Like, there's tactics for marketing and strategies, but the key principle is keeping your customers happy. And that's just the proof is in the pudding.
Definitely.
So there's kind of two elements there that I wanted to touch on that I found really interesting. The first one was you talked about, obviously, one of the first things you do is make the product more scalable, or how can we deliver it to more people? And I think that's obviously, when we talk about growing a business, a lot of the time people say that, in order to get to your first million, you have to spend 80% of your time on sales and marketing. But I feel like that can be misconstrued at times because people then just go and spend 80% of their time on marketing and sales and they just leave their product there that sucks and, isn't actually delivering the result. So, and obviously you guys mentioned that what you do is you look, instead of going to sales and marketing first, you actually look at how the product's delivered and see, hey, can we find more time here? Can we deliver the same level of product or if not better, but actually, still create more time for sales and marketing, through automation or tech and so on. So is that kind of correct in the way that I'm saying it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think also making sure you're happy with your product. So when you come to us, it's a really good opportunity just to give everything. If you have an existing business, it's a really good opportunity just to audit where you're at. And that's where qualitative and quantitative customer data and feedback is so important. You'll frequently ask questions.
I was gonna say that, like, obviously your numbers tell you one thing, but I think talking to the customer service rep in a business, or most times that's the founder wearing a million different hats, it's like, what do people predominantly ask you when they sign up and they're like, oh, they can't find the payment page or they can't do, and it's like, well, we're going to stop answering that question every day. Let's make sure that this button, this call to action is like right there and then. But just that discovery of what are people asking you, that's where they're stuck along the way. And even for us, we had people that were asking for, templates and what do you do with this? What do I do with my existing clients when I'm launching this new product? So then from that, we created a migration strategy. Do you know what I mean? Like it's very much process driven based on the questions people ask you.
So I was doing this meditation the other day. I was really stressed when we were launching, and I lay on my office floor and I'm lying on the floor, like flat on the floor, which technically is not how you're supposed to meditate apparently. And the guy introduces the meditation by saying, most people meditate looking for answers, but if you have to ask the question, then you already have the answer. And I was like, Imagine saying that to a client. But it's so funny because honestly, when you do look at a business, the answers you seek are within you. You just have to be trained to look for them. And your success leaves clues. Your customers will tell you when they're not happy. Your happiest and your unhappiest customers are your greatest asset because they're not afraid to tell you what's wrong. They're not scared to ask for more or to tell you how to improve. And having that relationship is so helpful.
Yeah.
And that's when, coming back to the product, you have a really good opportunity to say, okay, can we enhance this? Can we improve it? Do we love this? Does it align with our brand values, our identity and our vision and our mission? And then when we really know that we're ticking the boxes of getting your customer result, whatever that result is, making them happy, that's when we then really get under the bonnet of the business.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And the other one was, so we talked about what are you doing and who are you doing it for? Which one comes first? What's, so
Who? The who.
Who? Yeah.
Don't find people for your products. Find products for your people.
Yeah, I thought so, yeah. Because like obviously I feel like that's what you can do a lot of the time when you start a business. I know probably I did it in the early days. Like you have this kind of set product in your head and then you go out and you start trying to find people that will buy it and then you kind of get attached to this product rather than, okay, and the next question was going to be around how do we find product market fit. So obviously something that I've been noticing with businesses that really take off, and you would have experienced it with Equilution, is like finding an unserved market. How are they currently unserved, or is there a lack of service there? And sometimes it can be the way you deliver a product. Sometimes it can be the way you communicate and brand a product and kind of create the tone of voice around the product. So like that was kind of something that I was going to ask, is like, which one comes first? And then can we talk a little bit about how you do find product market fit and what that feels like and looks like when you're actually in a business?
I think, just on that word feels like, I think that is like a key driver in, a lot of things personally that I've done, and I know Jenna's the same. Like we've had a lot of commercial opportunities knock at our door, but I think the things that we've dived into being, business one and business two are problems that we've had that we wish we were the solution back then, and I think that empathy for your target market through just that sheer being able to resonate, I think that really solidifies that you've got a solution for your problem when you can feel the problem and you can feel your solution, I think that really goes sort of like a long way. In my first business, we were our first customers. We lost a collective 50 kilos through flexible dieting. We're like, the world needs to know about this, before the world knew about it and every man and their dog were doing flexible dieting, that is. So I think, and even now, I've said time and time again, I was a founder once. I was a vulnerable, inexperienced founder, and if I had a service like what Jenna and I offered, life would have been a lot easier. So
much
I think product market fit, it also goes like a long way, finding that to feel that.
I think as well, like validation. So obviously it's problem and solution selling. Classic, what's the problem? What's the solution? There's a reason that you can walk into Chemist Warehouse and buy vitamins that say joints, because they know that that's the problem. It doesn't really matter what's in it. And I think people have a big idea. They get really excited by their big idea, but I really think what's missed a lot is what's in it for them. Like, what problem are you really solving? And then in terms of finding product market fit, like knowing that you've got it, it's about looking, does anyone else offer this? How do they do it? Are there any gaps in the market, anything that I could do differently? And then how are they selling it? Like really knowing your customer and positioning it correctly.
Which sounds so cliche, but in actual fact, there's so many people that look at competitors and don't see gaps. They see an opportunity to copy.
Scarcity mindset.
That was going to be my question. So like, because I think there's a really great answer laying there, is like, what's a gap? Because a gap isn't just, this product's already been done 1,000 times. A gap could be like, like I look at someone like James Smith. He found a gap because everyone was talking about science in this real scientific way, and then he'd come in and was just like,
"You've just hit the nail."
You know what I mean? So that's like, so what is a gap?
You've just hit the nail on the head. Messaging.
Yeah.
It's your messaging. People don't know what you do until they know how much you care. So they don't know what your service entails until they've signed up, really. And what your service, like your features and benefits, are largely indifferent from your customers. So from your competitors. So that's where the messaging is so powerful, and how you communicate and using their language. So I don't know, like I wouldn't go as far as say he found a gap. He found a market. He went to the Gen Pop masses. He wasn't looking like a bodybuilder. He wasn't coming out too structured. He was using a language that they understood.
Yeah, and even from a tech perspective, getting the product reviews of your competing mobile apps and even products, jump on websites and Google reviews and read those bad reviews. Why were people unhappy? What were they looking for that this particular product or service did not provide in a solution? And I think the answer's really, I love what we do, and I always credit us for being quite good at what we do, but I'm going to say it's quite simplistic when you know what you're looking for, sort of thing. And I think for a lot of founders, a lot of operators, the answers are right there.
But on that, I do want to say, if I took my car to Mercedes-Benz because I knew something was wrong with it, they'd be like, oh, that's the problem.
That's
like,
true.
You know what I mean? So yeah, it's so easy for us to go, it's so easy. Yeah. It's in front of you. I would not know the first thing about that, and I'm sure they would.
Yeah, 100%.
That's really true. But I think what I'm trying to say is not to discredit, I guess, what we do or anything like that.
It's so easy. You could do it.
You don't need to go far, to really seek
it's the skills, right?
It's the one thing. It's just if you sell one product, if that's your horse, back it and refine it, and do everything you can to just improve its fitness.
Yeah.
I think it's, like you said, it's like the skills, right? So, or the knowledge that you have goes a long way. So like there's definitely people will pay you guys because you've done the reps and the sets, and you can find it much quicker than say they could. But I think you're definitely right. Like, competition, when you say the word competition, some people look at it as like, I'm in a fierce battle with these people over there. And it may or may not be the truth. That's not what I'm trying to argue, but it's more about, okay, the reason competition's so important is because you can find a value proposition or you can find what makes you different, and by researching them and looking at what they do and, like you said, their customers and so on, and what can you do that they can't, and so like Frank Body, like I'm in a very lucky position. I get to have wonderful conversations with amazing people, and like I look at Frank Body, clear tone of voice, speaking in a different way. Moxie. So do you know Moxie?
Yeah.
Moxie. So we had the founder of Moxie on, and same things. Like, she was her customer. It was like, okay, everyone in this space is talking about it. Like, they're not talking about it. And they're in a certain language, and it's like, the tin, like, that they come out with rather than plastic and tampons being all over the bag and stuff like that. It was like, they didn't change the product, they just wrapped it a different way. The packaging, they kind of changed it, and that's where the gaps come in. I think when you said gaps, I was like, oh, like that's a really cool kind of
and you look at both of those founders as well, and they were able to immerse in the problem because they were the target market, like they got their clientele, they got their customers. So I think there is huge merit for being a passionate founder that gets it because you are it. You know what I mean?
And there's this quote from Jeff Bezos that I absolutely love, and he says, if you are competitor focused, then you will always be sort of one step behind. But if you're customer focused, you'll be more pioneering because your customers will literally tell you what they want and need. The market will tell what they're asking for it. People in your industry, in your category, if you look at their consumer behavior, if you look at their spending, like Jade was saying, go look at reviews, go on Instagram, read comments, go ask people if you're really sort of in that early phases. They'll tell you.
And I think there's a big confidence piece in backing yourself in that as well. We had an incident the other day where we had a business coach that wanted to come on board with our accelerator program, and Jenna was sort of like, like, is it cool? Like, she's in the same space. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. When we were at Evolution, like we used to coach coaches, and obviously they're going to have the secret sauce and all the tools and everything like that to go and produce the service for their customers. But you really have to be confident in the brand that you're building and the experience that you're backing as well, because there's going to be competition around everything.
Yeah, and like let them, like especially in the health and fitness space, there's so many, like you're more or less all selling the same thing. And I think people that's where that scarcity mindset can really get you down, can make you sort of of a bit of a punish to work with. And I think if someone's going to come out with a Me Too product, let them, because by the time they get the wheels up and running on that, you're going to be innovating yours. It's going to be even better. And it's like, you got to really just keep your eye on your own prize.
Yeah.
Guys, if you're loving this episode, make sure to take a screenshot, give us a tag, or even take a photo if you're watching it. Help spread the love. It helps us out dramatically. Guys, I want to say a massive thank you to our major sponsors, BizCover. I was driving home the other night and I thought to myself, wow, we have so much stuff in the studio that is extremely valuable, and if anything ever happened to it, I would never be able to forgive myself. So I needed contents insurance. By the time I got home, within 20 minutes, I was insured. There was no paperwork, and it was literally one of the easiest processes I've ever gone through. And that's the beauty of BizCover. They'll give you the best price. There's no paperwork involved, and it's truly so easy. So whether it's public liability, professional indemnity, or even like me, contents insurance, BizCover's you go to when it comes to getting your company insured and making sure that nothing ever comes to get you in the future. So if you want to get your company insured and check them out, the link to their website is in the show notes. I've been a customer now for 7 years, and it's for good reason. Check them out. I think the two things you just mentioned there like really go hand in hand together. And it's like you said that being customer focused, and like one thing that I've always taken with me, which I learned from someone, I can't remember who, but it's like the 3 C's, customer, competition, company, like your internal company. And it's like, you know, understanding it's not about focusing on one or the other or whatever it is. It's about understanding the relationship between all of those things and how they affect each other. Like, you know, the crossover between competition and company is what can we do that they're not, or, you know, and understanding that crossover. But then, you know, also give your best ideas out for free, right? Because it's like information, like we kind of talked about it before. It's like, is anyone really providing new information, or are we just repackaging it?
We are consumers. People are hearing and seeing things and forgetting about it seconds later. And so you can get everything available on Google. So whatever you're selling is probably already available if people know what to look for, right? So it's the way that you deliver it. It's the experience that they have. So give your best ideas out for free. Good luck to you, to whatever you do with it. Remember that you've got that in your inbox. You know what I mean? Or remember that you watched that one episode. Or it's how you action it. It's how you integrate it that really makes the difference.
I agree. There's a lot of replicas out there today. I think the age of, you know, new ideas and like brand spanking new ones are. It's pretty
golden
rare.
ages. It's a golden era.
It is pretty rare.
If you get one, you're probably a billionaire. So
yeah.
Well, I mean, there's this book 0 to 100, and it talks about the greatest inventions of our time happening in the golden era, golden ages, like penicillin, heart surgery, electricity, and then nothing really amazing happened until, you know, Facebook, Google, Uber, everything in between didn't change humanity. That changed humanity. That changed mankind. And so it's like Albert Einstein says, there's no such thing as a unique idea, just an inspired thought. So whatever idea you've got has come from a few sources of things that already exist. So if you are obsessed or worried about competition, who cares, man? Just go for it.
I remember being in Silicon Valley pitching Evolution and being like, it doesn't exist. And then, you know, big VCs were going, but does it? Like, is there some competitors? And then when you really peel it back, they do, you know.
Substitution, at least, if not direct
talks of finding the gap, right? Like it's literally that. So I asked this question, we had Sabri Subi on the other day, and he was amazing, but it's a question we haven't really asked too much, but I feel like you guys will be able to knock this out of the park. What don't people know about marketing that you think holds them back?
Storytelling. I think too often it's about the glitz and the glam, the graphics, and trying to portray a image of you, but people buy why you do things, people buy who you are. I think the messaging is inconsistent because they chop and change if they're not seeing the numbers. I think that there's the failure to, or the lack of consistency or willingness to sort of stick with a message or a campaign to really, as repetition is key, right? It's like building the muscle of your consumer's mind. And I think storytelling and connection, building that connection is really lost. It's so prominent on TikTok and Instagram, and that's why Facebook is hemorrhaging users, and marketing companies, unless you're sort of in distribution channels, have to be playing on that space. But I just think failing to tell a story of what you stand for, unless you're an FMCG product and people need you, and it's like toothpaste and toothbrushes and things like that, to have a loyal customer, like the Frank Body community and things like that, you want to build that community and you want connection and storytelling.
I've got two things on that. So that in action is sort of seen between the partnership of Jenna and I. So I had followed Jenna for maybe 3 or 4 years before we
She was an
OG. And I'd followed her before she had a substantial following, just back in the day sort of thing. And we actually only met in December. And for context, like, it's July. And we started a business together that's been in business for 6 months.
Yeah.
And we're in the 7th month of the year, so do the math sort of thing. But when I met her, because of her ability to tell a story on Instagram, and when I say a story, I don't mean anything that's glossed over. I mean showing up as her on her Instagram. I inherently knew her before I even met her. And so that's why when we met in December, we clicked. I knew exactly what she was about, and I had full confidence in splitting the pie 50-50 going into this business. And I knew exactly how and why we'd be compatible.
And isn't that just, I mean, okay, there's a lot of trust there to go from a multi-million-dollar company and go, okay, we'll go half again. And it's like, you know, just like a customer needs to trust you, that just goes to show that you can build trust with a stranger, and that's connecting to your audience. Definitely. And being really vulnerable and sharing. And I think brands without faces struggle to do this because they forget to put their customer first. Yeah. Put your customer on your advertising.
That was my second part as well. It's just lack of being customer centric on any social media and marketing channels existing these days.
People buy people.
Exactly. And, you know, I've had online coaches say, you know, like, I'm just not getting that many leads and that many inquiries at the moment. I'm like, because you post only your workouts every day. Like, where are your customers? Yeah. Where are your results? Your day on a plate doesn't tell me how you can get me my result, you know? And I think that sometimes gets lost in people just trying to do what the 1 million, 2 million following big fitness.
They're the FMCG of the fitness industry. They've got the foot traffic, like they've got the viewers.
They could put anything out there. That's why half of them go and do apparel, because they know if they even get 2% of their following, they've got a substantial business. Some people don't have that luxury of that many eyes on the brand. So with whatever they've got in their corner, they need to connect with them. And the best way to connect is saying, you know, you've got a problem, I've got your solution. See, look at this girl.
And
she looks just like
you.
Exactly.
Yeah, so interesting. And do you think that that kind of problem that founders have stems from, say, the time horizon that they have? You know,
I think so many things.
That's the one thing I think now I'm doing better than what I did previously. You know, like being in new businesses, it's like now I know my time horizon is 5 years, and I'm kind of navigating my decision making that way. So, like, you know, we're a year into this now. And we've kept a consistent message. Now we're doing really well now, but you know, there was times, like, if you look at, I posted a photo of like how the podcast has grown over time.
Oh yeah.
Right. And it was like, and then right. Yeah, but nothing changed around the messaging. It was more like, you know, in terms of the core message, but I think it kind of talks to that of like, we didn't change what we were doing. We stuck to our guns for, you know, probably 6 months where we weren't seeing great results, but it was like, that time horizon, I was like, cool, we just got to stay the course here because I really believe in it.
Well, I have like two things on that. I think, so if you look at Netflix in 1998, their vision statement was delivering content to people, making great content accessible. It never changed. Technology changed and the business became it's the largest production company in the world. It's bigger than Hollywood essentially, and they use tech to grow. But they never envisioned that they would be what they were, but they stayed true to their vision and their messaging. But yes, time horizon, but I also think ego. I think ego can really hold you back from growth. Like, you have to admit what you don't know, and you have to be open to asking for help and being wrong.
Yeah, I agree.
That's one of the things that, like, personally I've been noticing just around me internally as well, like self-awareness, like, hey, are we trying to rush this too much? How does this decision affect things and so on? Like, it's in a startup, it's so hard to do because you are rushing 99% of the time.
Yeah. Like, you just want to get there.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Especially when you are such a visionary. Like, we say having founders' vision is so important. It's a blessing and a curse because, like, we see it and we're there, and then we're just kind of like, you know, you can be really. It's not that it's not so ego as such. It's just we know know that we're going to get there, and I am super impatient.
Yeah, that's why I really believe in, you know, the power of partnership. And I think when you're having experiences internally, that's where, you know, if you don't have a team or a mentor, you know, you go to your co-founder, and that's where one will pull one up, or, you know, just give a different perspective and clarity. And it's always been something that I've had in my past relationship and in my present as well. I feel like where one's lacking, one will fill the gap with confidence and reminders and things like that, because inevitably that is always going to happen, you know.
It's life.
But if you're really true to the vision and the belief, like a lot of people don't turn that corner after that first stumble, and they won't get back on the horse. And I think that's what makes companies last, or it makes them seize, you know. And I think that's where really you need to look around you and have people where you can say, you know, am I doing the right stuff? Like, am I onto something? And they'll remind you, you know.
It's interesting, right? Because like leadership can be portrayed as not having all the answers, but I think true leadership is not being afraid to ask those people around you for help.
Yeah,
you know, like
you were saying before,
Yeah.
like, and also asking people if they're happy and how to communicate with them and what they need, and yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
having great people around you that can also give you advice, you know, and are not afraid to give you advice,
Yeah.
and you're actually willing to take that on. Like even now, like, you know, because I think money's such an emotional thing. Like we all have different relationships with it, and then we'd be silly not to think that it affects the way we make decisions in business. But then having someone with an outside perspective, you know, either it's someone in leadership or it could be your co-founder, to be like, look, no, we're okay. Like,
Yeah.
you know, we don't need to go down this path, or we don't need to make this decision now, or, you know, this is our brand.
Yeah,
I
literally.
mean, you know, like I'm saying that because
Yeah.
I'm, you know, when you're
Yeah.
talking, I'm doing the same thing. I'm like, you know,
It's like
even
being
me
in a
having my partner.
relationship.
Yeah. Like having my partner in the business now, where she's just like, there's times, like there's honestly been times where I've been challenged on brand, and it's like, oh, you know, if we make this, it's a little bit off brand, and she'll be like, no, like we're going to stay on brand, even though the money's sitting there, you know. And it's kind of like, as a founder, like, you know, I didn't make that decision, but I thought about it, and it was great to have someone there to pull me back and say, no, we're not doing that. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And someone who was, you know, had the I guess the leadership skills to do that, and then I can take that on. So
Yeah, I think also as well, like the power of a discussion, the power of a brainstorming session, like two heads are always better than one. And whether or not you do go ahead with the decision or not, your energy, if it lacks or whenever you're not 100%, there's also the ability to just brainstorm and it brings you back to why you started. And like if I'm ever having a day where I'm just like, gosh, why am I doing all of this? Like, where are we going? It's so nice to be able to just, you know, like it really keeps you in touch with the vision, I think. So it can be quite
100%.
grounding.
I agree.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so the next question is surrounding, you know, everybody has their own philosophies on business, in my opinion. Like everybody thinks about it in a different way. Like Ice is one guy that I think about when, you know, he's obviously very content first, product second, you know, we can kind of work our way through. So I'd love to hear, you know, what's the big Uppetite philosophy? You know, how do you think about it? You know, obviously there's guiding principles that are global to business, but how do you guys personally think of it?
So right now, I think we are very product service focused for the mere reason that community to build takes time. But I'd like to see, you know, our main focus in the future be on community and leveraging off the different energies that all come, you know, within that, giving the power to the people. What do you want to see, and letting them drive our decision making. Right now, we're fulfilling a gap in a need of our market that has a problem, you know. But in future, when that community builds and that brand awareness builds, we are going to go through the process where the table will turn, and it will be less focused on Jenna and I and more focused on the people. That's my philosophy of successful business, and I think that's something that we'll stay very true to.
Yeah, and I'm so excited for that. Like, I love our clients that we work with. I love seeing them get it. I love seeing them grow. I love watching them become online business owners, not just coaches. And I would love to have a place and connect them together and really sort of drive that community base of people who are building their business in the market and solving problems and being more sort of community focused, I guess, listening to what they want to do as well. And I think at the moment we are very one-on-one. Like Jade and I are actively servicing all of our clients individually, and then leaning on the team to design, develop, create and execute. So it is a really beautiful phase of our business because it's not always going to be like that. We will be growing the team. So the clients that we do get to work with now, we really get under the bonnet. We're so passionate about building our brand on their success, that their success is at literally the forefront of everything that we think about all day. So which I love, but I also can't wait for the day that we're seeing that at a really big level.
How important do you think community is moving forward? You know, because for me, I think it's the biggest opportunity in the next 10 years. I think the way technology is moving, that's what it's going to galvanize. So like, how are you thinking along the same lines? Is community something that you're like, every business is going to have a community in the future? You know,
Definitely.
like, how are you thinking about it?
I think every business needs to have a community in some respect, you know, like it doesn't really matter what you do. I think the obvious things are where people come together on a common goal, you know, the health and fitness businesses and things like that. And then I think there's a whole other end of the spectrum, like the trade community and things like that. But either way, it is really just people coming together, forming a relationship on the common denominator of they've got similarity, you know, and it's being part of something, it's being heard, and it's being facilitated by a provider that is satisfying like all of those senses, I guess you could say. So I think there's a place for community in everything.
think community is the new word for client base. You know, like you could have Joe's hardware store down the road, and if you put them in a Facebook group where they were all sharing their DIY ideas, you could inspire somebody else to do something handy around the house and then come in store and repeat buy, and that's how you get buyer's frenzy. So there's all these like digital terms that are happening that people like bricks and mortar businesses and startups and tradies and direct to physical service providers think that they can't capitalize on because they can't go online if they're not scalable. And it's like, well, you can still capitalize on the inspiration, the adoptability of your product and service among your competitor, your customers, because they're always going to be more relatable than you are. It's free content creation.
Yeah, that's a big one, isn't it?
Like Debbie at home repots her 3 pot plants, and she's probably going to post a photo of it, but look what I did. And then
it's funny
Jenna's going to get inspired.
It's funny you say that, because I was literally just thinking about, you know, my mum, and my mum is a huge plant enthusiast. She will tell you everything about
her garden looks like Bali.
It's literally stunning. She can keep things alive, which is something that I can't when it comes to plants. And if Flower Power had her in their community group, just spokespersoning different, you know, plants and things like that they've got in their in their yard, she could attract sales just through sharing.
So imagine the scalability of that when you're an online direct-to-consumer business. Just imagine. Like anyone in the world can see whatever it is that their person that they're looking up to is cool doing, and then go jump on and buy it. And then, you know, if you can capture them and connect to them, and that's how you create buyer's frenzy.
Yeah.
It really, like, if you look at Apple iPod or phone, nobody uses the earphones that come with it. They use the AirPods, and they use it, and then like you see it on the street, you know, and it's like very easy to know when Apple's released a new product, obviously, because it's everywhere. But that's on the bigger scale compared to Joe's hardware, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, you know, so
I don't know if Joe's hardware's a thing, by the way. It might be. I feel like it is. Sorry, Joe.
No, but it's so true, because like these big companies that we're talking about, like what do Apple do every time they launch a product? You know, they're doing a big event where their community comes together. So you're either a shareholder, a stakeholder, or someone who's interested in it, or someone who just wants to be around those kind of people. So like, and they do one Tesla do it, you know, they've taken that out of that playbook too. And it's kind of like, I heard David Sachs talk about it, the co-founder of PayPal, and he talks about, you know, we mentioned it before, the cadence. And it's funny, like what he has in the cadence is once a quarter you do an event. And he goes,
oh, we'd love to do that.
But he says, he's like, you think no one will come? He goes, that's what you think as a founder, as a startup. But he goes, trust me,
it's just
people come.
syndrome.
And he goes, the biggest thing is it brings so much attention to your business. And I think it kind of talks to the power of community in relation to brand and marketing.
Definitely. I had that evident, because obviously in my previous business I had such a strong community, which I was very, very dedicated to building and very dedicated to putting time and energy into, because I really believed the success of the business were in the hands of those people. And we even saw patterns like, we would put a new recipe within the database and we'd give it to a customer that we knew would post it and share it and everything like that. And then from that, in the next week's check-in, we'd have like dozens of people say, can I have the pasta bake that was on so-and-so's Instagram, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, you turn that into like a marketing strategy, like share your latest creation and we'll give you $150 Coles gift voucher for your groceries for the following week.
It's a Frank Body thing, isn't it?
Exactly.
And that imposter syndrome, like I remember when I created my Facebook community group, this was a while ago and I haven't been super active in there, but I went to sleep and I woke up with 1,100 requests and that was a lot off at the time. 40,000 followers. 1,100 requests is huge engagement. And it grew really fast over lockdown and they were all sort of chatting amongst themselves. And I remember one night I was bored in lockdown, living by myself, working for myself. I think I had 2 wines and I was like, who wants to have a wine with me? I honestly didn't even think about the power of that event. And there was like 100 heads popping up all over the world. And I'm sitting there like, what do I say? And they all sat there with no microphones and no cameras because they were so shy. So I was sitting there by myself thinking like, honestly, if anyone can talk to themselves, it's probably me. But I remember that's when I realized like I have a community here.
Yep.
I have an audience.
We should get in that group.
Yes, we should. Yes, we should.
I think we're all having that during COVID, we're all having that thought. Who wants to have a wine?
Yeah,
Zoom
I
wines.
know. Please, I miss you. Anyone, someone.
Yeah. Awesome. We're going to dive into quickfire now. So
This makes me nervous, Kyle. I get nervous.
well, you know what? Like I say,
I feel like I need a buzzer.
I think I get nervous. I had my stepfather on once, and he's like a mindset guy, but he's like, he's like, what is podcasting? Like, what are you doing? This is like silly type thing. Not in a bad way, but he's like, I just don't get it. But then I said quickfire and he said like 5 words. And I'm like, oh. So, you know what I mean? I'm like,
quick.
Yeah.
Fast.
Yeah, it's like, do this now. Like, okay.
Like one word, it's like the association game, like 1 word responses.
Yeah, but it's not that. So you can talk as long as you want
We can
and so
elaborate.
on. Okay, so what's the most important trait that a founder must have for success?
Integrity.
Grit. Do you want us to have it? we just did a step up.
I just think show me, don't tell me. Like you've got your vision, you're working hard, get it done, do the work, get under the bonnet, get the help. Do what you say you're going to do. Be true to your promise to your customers. Be true to your promise to your team. Be true to your promise to yourself.
Mine's grit because I really believe that you're going to be put through the ringer no matter how. I think some journeys are smoother than others. Some people get different head starts, whatever that looks like. But I think that you need to have some sort of personal resilience to be able to move past particular adversities in whatever way, shape or form they come up in. I had a really interesting start to my last business because before we decided to just bootstrap and build a business that would fund a tech product, we started on the traditional foot of go to Silicon Valley and knock on doors sort of thing. And we got so many no's. And you would literally, as a 22-year-old female who had this dream to build this app, which did come to life through our own grit and determination, you would close the book and start, envisioning a new dream if you didn't have that in you.
I actually just said to Jade this morning in the car, you have the highest, someone said this to me once before, but I just see it in you, like you have the highest tolerance or bandwidth for hard times and bullshit of anyone I've really ever known or seen to then still just continue to show up and work every day, like with everything that Jade's had going on professionally and personally, and just to see her still showing up, just showing up and getting it done. And like, it's like, obviously, the time is coming where the break will come, but that grit, that resilience, and it's like, it's something that you have to have.
I always think about the meme where it's like, have you seen that one on Instagram that pops up where it's the gold digger and they stop just before the gold mine?
Oh, no.
Like it's like they're digging a hole and then there's like 2 people and one of them keeps digging, the other one stops like a millimeter before. And I think like that's the whole idea around grit and resilience and like,
Stop.
You just never know how close you are,
Yeah.
to a breakthrough. So I think that's really important. So what's the one thing nobody tells you about entrepreneurship that you think everyone should know before starting?
It's lonely. I think that's something that is often not spoken about. I think there's, a huge focus on success and the other side of your hard work and what that looks like and what that means and growing a team and everything like that. But for the most part, there's a lot of times where the office door is shut and it's just you and a laptop and a dream, And I think that that is a very real part of the reality of a startup. Even Jenna and I are so front facing when it comes to our marketing material and our clients and things like that. But in actual fact, we're two computers at two different locations with two different individuals that start the day, pretty much by ourselves and finish it, in the same sort of way. I mean, I have a loving boyfriend, but the days are quite lonely,
It's so true. And I think also because not many people actually understand what you're going through. So the conversations you have can also almost be very hollow at times as well. That's one thing I've noticed is you're having for someone who doesn't own a business, and it's there's again nothing against it's not like that. It's more just you get the same questions. Yeah. How's it going? And it's
how do I answer this?
Good.
It's it can be hard catching up with friends sometimes, and I just feel because I want to tell you, but you probably don't really understand, and it moves so fast that the next time I see you, so much has happened and changed direction that it's you end up just giving a really it's crazy, but it's really good.
That's literally it.
Simon
crazy busy, but good.
Simon Sinek was talking about this in the context of introverts and extroverts and socializing, and he was saying, an extrovert gets their energy from socializing while an introvert loses their energy while socializing. And I so, felt that, because I think when you're a founder, if you haven't identified with either camp, you can get sucked and pulled and refilled in ways that you're not quite fully aware of until you're really self-aware, So I think it's a lot of learning as you go as well.
There's a level of competence as well in terms of that self-awareness that you understand definitely where to put yourself in what social situations and stuff as well.
Yeah.
So cool. What's something that you've changed your mind on about leadership in the last, say, 2 to 5 years?
I used to believe that you needed to lead with logic and the smarts and, sternness about you. And I've since sort of, I guess, crept into a more feminine kind of perspective on that. And I guess by being a female, just my natural maternal, which is it is okay to lead with feeling. And I think that that really distinguishes different types of leaders, the ones that can look at their staff members and say, you need a break, you need help, I know what you're good at, I know you love doing this, let's give you more of that, and allowing your team to flourish, and then looking at your customers and saying, okay, you're dissatisfied, how can we do this better, how can we do that better? I think that motion is not something that a textbook will teach you. It is something that you intuitively feel and have to lean into. And I think as a leader, we're often told to, put those feelings away, leave them at home, leave the emotion at home. And now, after, going through an exit and starting a new business, one new learning that I've taken with me is no, fuck that. I will definitely be leading with my feelings, because my intuition is the thing that teaches me where to go. It's the compass, really.
I think as well, for me, it's how to inspire creativity so that it's always a solutions-based sort of conversation. And I think in working with so many different people that are across so many different clients and areas, like the back end of the business or the frontline staff, you are actually more capable of coming up with a solution to the problem you're coming to me with than I am. Like I shared before, it's been a while since I sat in the back of a CRM platform or anything like that. But from a strategic point of view, I can always think of a solution. But if someone is coming with a problem, it's I know that you are able to think of what I'm able to think of. I just want to help you think of it first. And that's where it's really about learning that person as an individual and learning how to empower them when there's no problems, so that they're able to sort of think creatively, and giving them the confidence to make decisions and the trust on the spot as well. I think in the past I was always kind of not a micromanager, but because I was always a one-man show, I was doing everything. I knew how it had to be done. I knew how I liked it done. And when you're building a brand around yourself as well, it's very easy to sort of be very robotic with that or rigid. And I think it's also about learning what do they think looks good. They're listening to your customers. They're using your systems. You need to empower them and trust them, because the more you trust them, the more empowered they are.
There's like a really good relationship between the way you communicate and giving that power to someone and then seeing them grow. And often, sometimes it can be hard to realize that a lot of the time you can take that power and you can also take the confidence once you do that. You know what I mean? So I think both of those answers were amazing. We're going to wrap it up. I want to say a massive thank you. I think that was another smashed out of the park episode. It's always good to catch up with you girls.
Yeah.
Where can everyone find Big Uppetite and yourselves? And we'll give it a little plug.
So website www.biguppetite.com. Feel free to send an inquiry and we'll get in touch in regards to building a business.
And on Instagram, big.uppetite. That's like appetite, but with a U. Hungry for growth, upward trajectory. Don't forget it.
I think, look, by listening to this, you know it's going to be great. So go check it out. Thank you again. Donnie, thank you for putting this together, the great man.
Thanks, Donnie.
Always hard on the road, but we get it done. And to our listeners, the support has been absolutely wild over the last month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months.
Let us know if you love it.
So just a massive thank you to you guys for everything. Hope you enjoyed the episode and we'll see you next week.